One of my earliest memories of Scott was the school would call our house and say Scott was being a little rambunctious. And I remember going to the school with my mom. Scott would always be in trouble for one reason or another.
If there was a loud noise or smoke in our quarter of the town, the police came to our house first. He was fearless. There wasn't anything that scared him, and it got him in trouble a lot.
He always did the work that he was assigned to do, that Dad wanted him to do. He was a good son, but he was adventuresome too. And it wasn't because he was a little outlaw. It was because just to see if he could do things.
He was always building stuff. And the best part is my dad would always let him, give him the opportunity, and that's not something that happens today, is that opportunity to build things and fail and build them again. You didn't tell him he couldn't do something. He would prove to you that you're wrong, that he could do anything. Scott learned how to do concrete with my dad.
I remember a time when he told me, he was probably 9 or 10 years old. He was working with his dad. There he was, just a young boy, and his dad says, "Son, I need you to stay here in the back and finish this concrete. I'll go to the front and finish that concrete." When his dad got finished, he walked around the back, saw what he did, and he just put his arm around him and says, "Son, you did a man's work today."
He learned his work ethic from my dad.
Scott is unique, probably more unique than anybody I've ever been around. I remember when Scott and Signa got married. I remember vividly their marriage, being at the wedding, and that she was gorgeous.
Scott started out like everybody else as labor.
He was my first employee when we started Gerber's, and we worked good together. But he always wanted to do it his way, and I was supposed to be the boss. So, yeah, and we had some arguments.
I met Scott 26 years ago. I was 19. It was 1990, and I was scared to death of him.
I was 18 years old. He was kind of loud, he knew what he wanted. He was real sure of himself. And I thought I was going to be able to whip the world and stuff like that, but he was a little intimidating.
Whenever I first met him, I heard stories from other motorcycle racers that worked here. They said, "Oh, Scott's a jerk. He's mean. Watch out. He'll spit you out and get you packing." So I was on edge, on my toes with him, and then end of the day, he's not too bad.
I mean, he didn't act like he was the owner of the company. He just acted like he was my friend, my boss, and I enjoyed that. He was very honest with me and upfront with me, and that was my first impression of Scott.
As far as work is concerned, Scott is very confident.
And all the confidence that he has, he earned every bit of it.
When he comes to the job site, he brings a heartbeat to the job.
I try to keep this in the back of my head as I'm doing things. Scott's successful because he thinks out of the box. He never thinks like everybody else, so he comes up with results that other people don't get.
Scott is very hands-on. He has to kind of have it out in front of him and lay it out and work it out. He definitely likes to do things his way and in his order.
I'd worked with Scott enough to know that he's just thinking out loud. He's already kind of figured out what he wants to do.
The biggest thing that sets Scott apart from most people that I've ever worked with is Scott is very creative. He can always find a way around any obstacle or any issue that might come up.
One of the things kept popping into my head is, how would Scott handle this? There's got to be a way. Scott would figure this out. How would he handle it?
We did a job one time where we had to move the river, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking there's no way, and I called Scott, "Hey, come help me figure this out," and in a couple hours he had a plan, and we moved the river and were able to get the work done.
I've always been impressed by his confidence that he has. It's like, how does a guy have so much confidence in his abilities, Because he can do anything. He knows he can. He puts his mind to it. I think he's got a gift of coming up with, unique ways of accomplishing things.
Above all, I don't know anyone who can get more work done with less than Scott.
For the construction work, Scott, he's the best out there.
You just watch him and you kind of start to understand how the cogs are turning inside that head, you know.
I think what makes Scott Gerber excel is his creativeness. Scott just comes up with these great ideas. And
Scott can do what he thinks he wants to do.
You cannot tell him that it can't be done.
But I remember his response was, "You guys just give up too early." And Scott doesn't have that. Sometimes I think he might not know when to give up.
Scott's work ethic is incredible. For a guy that's been here 40 years, he still can outwork just about everybody here. And he takes pride in that.
He's taught me to take pride. When you do something, you take pride in it, and you make sure that when you leave, that's the best you could do.
just by watching him and what he does at work is to have pride and to be prideful, but not be cocky at the same time.
After knowing him for 25 years, you see that when he works, you know, he works with a purpose.
He walks with a purpose. Full steam ahead. I'm hoping I'm not in a wheelchair when I'm that age, let alone working as hard as he does. I don't know how he does it.
What I admire about Scott Gerber is his work ethic. He's the first one out of his truck, and he's right there all day. He's a prime example of a good leader, I think.
One thing that Scott has taught me is not to settle. There's always things that you can do better, quicker, easier.
Scott's just a practical joker. He just wants to have fun. He's like a 10-year-old kid at heart.
As long as you were working hard, then, you know, it was okay to have a little fun. He ran across the deck one day while we were on that project and ran right up next to me, and he turned around and let one rip and then just says, "Have a nice day," and he turned around and walked off.
One time we were up at Echo, and there was, I don't know how many, 30 or 40 cores laying all over the ground that we had to pick up on the slope. And he picked up this core and just flung it as hard as he could off of it. Down the spillway, up the side of the wall, just twirling, spinning, hits the water, and boom, there's a big old splash of water. And he's like, "Oh, that was fun. Let's do that again."
And Scott was always a class clown. Always, you know, work was really fun.
You'll just have to ask Scott how far smell travels on a telephone.
We were working in Salina. We started playing practical jokes on each other, and before you know it, things really got out of hand.
We were out of town up at the Hiram Spillway. We busted into his room while he was showering, took all the sheets off of his bed, took the box spring, put it on top of the mattress, made it back up. We hightailed it out of there. We didn't know what was going to happen. According to what Jordan had told us, Scott came out of the shower, and then arms stretched wide open, he just like back flopped down onto the box spring.
The thing I liked the most about it was Scott always had the best one-up. Scott would come up with something that would be better than what the next guy had.
And the message said, pretty good one, boys. That's a pretty good prank with the box spring there. And then he said, "Don't worry, you'll get yours." And then the phone hung up.
It got to a point where it was now his time to retaliate on me. And we were in a hotel in Salina, and I forgot to lock the adjoining door. I remember in the middle of the night hearing a psh, and then feeling my hair kind of blow. And I sat up in bed, and it smelled like paint. And I was really tired, and I didn't give it much thought, and I just went back to sleep, lay down, went back to sleep. And then I hear a psh, and I felt it blow. And I sat up, and I think I lay back down again. So the third time when it happened, I sat up. I'm alert, wide awake, and I looking around the room, and it was pitch black in there, and all I could see in between the beds was these white teeth smiling at me. Anyway, I kicked him in the forehead. He rolled, and then ran in the other room, just giggling like a little girl. So I got up and went in the bathroom, and he had spray painted a green paint track on my hair.
Scott, in one word, is genuine. the way he is at work. He's genuine. Like, that's him. Like, he's never going to bullshit you, ever. That's him. He's going to be open and honest.
I think what you see is what you get.
Work-wise, the one word I would probably use is efficient.
If you were to take Scott's mind, and if you were to take and totally, like, just let him go wild, that's what the Fairview Tunnel was just picked straight from Scott's mind. I mean, it was a Scott Gerber diamond mine. I mean, the door opened and he had generators inside. They were all plumbed, the exhaust going outside. He had a skid steer in there. He had connexes in there. He had everything in there staying warm, and he had ways to figure out how to switch the battery off of the little locomotive. He had a garage door rigged up for the fan so that you could push the button and go, and the door would open for you, and you'd go past it on the cart, hit the button, and the fan would close behind you. Just the whole system was completely up to him. I mean, he invented the whole system. It worked ingeniously well. It was awesome. I was glad I was a part of that.
The word off the job I would choose is caring.
He is probably more willing than most to take the new guy, the young kid, the guy that not a lot of people want to work with, take him under his wing, and that is a great thing to see, especially considering he's an owner.
I mean, I think there's very few people at his age that can do what he does day in and day out, and he's just hardcore.
When you see someone, especially an owner of the company, that's out there and puts in the effort that he does, it makes you want to be the best that you can be too.
Scott has a side to him that a lot of people don't see, and he really does care about everybody that works here.
One time Scott came through in a very personal way. It was when my mom passed away, and I remember Scott was one of the first people that called me when he came over to the house, and we talked for a while, and it was really he just shared his experiences with his parents passing away, and that he could, I don't know, he was there for it, and he understood exactly what you're going through.
He's influenced me in ways that I don't know that I can really describe. I know that I wouldn't be where I'm at today without Scott. I don't think the company would be where it's at today without Scott.
He's passionate about this company. He's passionate about the individuals that work here. I think he truly does love the people that work here.
I remember him telling us one day that every day he gets up and he prays for everybody's safety, and I really believe that about Scott.
We're not just a number to him. At the end of the day, I know he wants the best for us, and he wants the best for our families too. He really does care, and I know he does, or he wouldn't be out there working with us.
I was struggling with some depression, and I'd taken my keys up to Scott and told him I was done. That I couldn't work here no more. I was done. I was done with my family. I was done with my job. And Scott told me to go home and things would be better tomorrow. And so I went home, and later that night, Scott and Signet come up to my home and pulled my wife and I outside. And told me it's okay to feel like that. That there were things that we could do, but he wanted to make sure that Heather knew that was how I felt. He definitely helped me through a rough time, personally, in my life. And I consider Scott my brother. He's just a good man.
He's accomplished a lot when it comes to work, a lot of things that nobody else, I think, could do. But more importantly than that, I think he's just changed the lives of a lot of people.
Scott's greatest accomplishment is probably the work ethic that he has put into all of the people that work here. What people have got that way is more than, oh, I built a building or I built a structure.
Greatest accomplishment that Scott's had in 40 years is that itself, is 40 years with Gerber Construction and seeing what it's amounted to and what it's grown to and how many lives and families that it supports.
To have a profitable company and to be able to provide for as many people as as the company provides for. That's probably his biggest accomplishment as far as the company goes.
He's shown that anything is possible if you will get your hands dirty and get to work. I think that he's never wanted to let my dad down. I'm sure that Dad's very proud of Scott and his work ethic.
When I don't want to do something, when it's hard, when it's just don't feel like I can accomplish it, when I start second guessing what my own, abilities are, I often think of Scott. And that's helped me in a lot of different areas of my life to try to have that same type of attitude and drive to accomplish.
Probably the best accomplishment he's had over 40 years is the people here that he's trained, that look up to him, that have a good solid life, a good solid career based on a lot of the teaching and the example that he's showed them.
I'm fortunate to have him as a brother. Gerbers will not see another man like him. Not with any, they just won't see it. It's just not going to happen.